Hello, this is Julian with Coffee Reviews, and today we'll be reviewing the Caramel Apple Wash Process Honduras from Talormade Coffee. And there's the box right there. And Talormade, based out of Oslo, Norway, and this is their second time appearing on the channel, as last year we reviewed their very strange and interesting anaerobic processed Uganda cheese and crackers coffee, which by the end did in fact end up tasting of cheese. And I knew after that review that we were going to need to go back and review something from Talormade's more standard offerings. And truth be told, my first choice was their Kenya, but they were completely sold out of the Kenya when I went to the shop that was selling Talormade. So I ended up purchasing this Honduras as a backup. And while we're on the note of Talormade coffees, if you go on their website right now, they have a very interesting line of coffees. Talormade is known to have some pretty interesting out there coffees. Right now they have what's called the Purple Rain series of coffees, themed after Prince, of course. And they're a bunch of strange, unique, processed Indonesian coffees, and I'm quite glad that the coffee shop didn't have those, because I would have probably ended up purchasing one of those coffees given just how out there a lot of those coffees are. But we have something standard. I'm looking forward to discussing something standard. This right here is day 29 of this coffee. And worth noting, this coffee is actually brewed through the AeroPress, and I'll get into why that is a little bit later. But the recipe I went with for this coffee was a 16.67:1 water to coffee ratio brewed at 208 degrees Fahrenheit. I like this one best through the Chemex, and this is a recipe that was actually given to me by Talormade when I emailed them for the cheese and crackers coffee, and it went with a medium grind on this. Now, Talormade is a light Nordic for the roast profile. They described this coffee as a medium dark for them, which makes me laugh, because if this is what Nordic roasters consider a medium dark, I can only imagine what they would consider an American medium. This is still lighter than most American coffees that you're going to get, so keep that in mind. They describe it as a medium dark, but that's not necessarily how I would describe it. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and start discussing this coffee. So day 19, first impression, and it was a little bit more out there than I was necessarily expecting. I was expecting something very comforting, down home, and down at home sort of cup of coffee, but there was a pretty strong tart apple just off this first impression. Lively in the acidity as well, with a slight bit of sweetness, even, rich-bodied, mostly balanced, and just an overall solid first impression. Day 20 ran it through the Chemex and liked it a lot better this way. So there was a little bit less acidity in the cup, while in its place we were getting a much more richer, darker caramel to the cup of coffee, and that's going to be the biggest theme, is this kind of dark caramel. Best way I can describe it: sweeter, richer, darker caramel. And there was a fair bit of zing in the cup as well, still that kind of apple that they're mentioning, but it was quite nice. Liked it a lot through the Chemex. Day 21, back through the Chemex, and another overall solid day. I liked it so much that I ran it back, and the cup yielded what I would describe as a slightly tangy citric apple, while maintaining a fair bit of this candy-like sweetness. It was a very candy, sugary-like sweetness in this cup of coffee. Very rich cup still pretty enjoyable. Day 23 ran up to the temperatures for the first time, and that yielded some really positive results. Ran it through the V60 and was getting wonderful body in the cup. As you'd expect, it was a lot heavier bodied cup when run through the V60, and a little bit more robust, and then a slight bit of the vibrant tang in the cup was rounding out the very noticeable caramel sweetness. Day 25, another day through the Chemex at those higher temperatures, and this was the best day of the cup of coffee I'd had to this point. Wonderful, sweet caramel-like finish that was just completely dominating the cup, and it was a lovely caramel finish. I've said before in the Elm coffee review that I really love when these kind of more developed, even if this is more developed for a Nordic coffee, more developed coffees, when they have this caramel. That's probably the thing I enjoy the most about these coffees. So this was definitely there. Some slight acidic spiced apple, so that's the best way I could describe the apple on this day, and the overall sweetness in the cup was akin to a chocolate caramel cookie. I was thinking mostly Girl Scout cookies, but yeah, it was wonderful. Day 28 ran it through the automatic coffee maker, and a lovely day for this cup of coffee, and every way I brewed it, V60, Chemex, automatic coffee maker, and now through the AeroPress, I have really enjoyed the coffee. Slightly different in every sense, but for the most part pretty consistent overall. Seems to round out the abundant caramel-like structure to the cup, full-bodied, rich overall with a high level of sweetness. Still a really enjoyable cup of coffee, and the only difference I'm really noticing brewing it through the AeroPress is I get a slight bit more of the apple acidity. So just based off how you want to brew this coffee, you're going to get something slightly different, but for the most part a pretty consistent cup of coffee. All right, let's go ahead and put up the tasting wheel so you can see what we were getting. And 4 level 4s, so let's run through them real quick. The sweetness we've been discussing a lot. There's great sweetness in this cup of coffee, so I really like the sweetness at a level 4. It's got a nice finish, very nice, well-rounded finish, so level 4 definitely there, and it's a pretty clean cup of coffee overall, so all of those definitely justified at the level 4. Caramel, level 4, it is the most distinct flavor that you're getting from this cup of coffee, but it is not too overbearing. It is not the it just does not completely dominate the cup in the way some other flavor profiles can. But then the other things worth noting, the level 3s. So it's still a pretty acidic cup of coffee. That's to be expected given where this coffee comes from. And then the citrus at a level 3. We like to lump the apple into the citrus category. It fits best in there, so definitely justified at that level 3. And then the chocolate in pretty significant abundance. It is definitely worth noting that a lot of these things on the tasting wheel could be adjusted based off of brew method. So for example, today with the AeroPress, we'd probably bump the citrus level 4, bump down the caramel to a level 3, maybe even bump up the chocolate, and then the body, whichever brew method we're going with, other than the Chemex, is going to be bumped up to a level 4. Automatic coffee maker, AeroPress V60, it's a pretty heavy bodied cup of coffee, so we bump all of those up to a level 4. But given it was ran through the Chemex, we have it on a level 3 for this tasting wheel. But other than that, I don't think there's too much else worth noting. I think this is a pretty accurate tasting wheel for what I was getting from the Chemex. Right, overall thoughts and impressions of this coffee. I'm really happy with this coffee because I find it very rare that I can try a cup of coffee in so many different brew methods and enjoy it equally in all of those brew methods. I think it was lovely. It was really pleasant drinking it through the Chemex, so that was a huge selling point to me. The sweetness in this cup was a huge selling point to me, and I definitely want to try more Talormade coffees in the future. It'll be interesting to see what I might be trying in the future given their wide range of offerings, something like this which is a little bit more on the tame side, and then they have all those kind of crazy wild out there offerings. I want to find something maybe in the middle ground that's a little out there but at the same time still within its realm of normalcy. Type of person I would suggest this coffee to. There are quite a few people actually. I feel like if you consider Nordic coffees to be a little bit too light for you, then I feel like this is maybe a good starting point, as this one right here, as they mentioned, is a little bit more developed for their scale. And as a result, the acidity is not completely dominating this cup of coffee. It's very much present, but you're still getting a lot of the more traditional characteristics that come from coffee: chocolate, caramel, and a slight bit of apple. So it will remind a lot of people of maybe a slightly less developed version of these comforting traditional coffees. I think that's the best way I can kind of discuss this coffee. I think this is the best way I'm going to leave it. But if you by chance had an opportunity to try this coffee or anything from Talormade, would love to know your thoughts and impressions of them, as they're a little different and they're very much a fun coffee roaster to discuss. If you're enjoying the content, give this video a like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. This right here has been a review of the Caramel Apple Wash Process Honduras from Talormade Coffee. Thank you for watching.